Hey, ladies and gentlemen, the Penitent Cop here, and I'm coming to you with the first question and answer session.
That's the sound of the police. That's the sound of the...
And first up, we're going to have Janie Seacrest ask, what was that thing you were holding in your prior post? Now, I'm assuming she's going back to February 16th, where I took a picture of an HHO generator. An HHO generator is a alternative fuel source which allows you to create flammable gas, and vent into your vehicle, and get better gas mileage. And I know Mythbusters did an episode on this basically saying it was debunked, but no. The science is real. If you try it, you'll see the gas burns, and if it's flammable, you could vent it, in theory, put it in your vehicle and get better gas mileage. Silvia Miriata, have they ever held your job over your head and or made threats toward pulling your badge knowing that you won't abuse the system or comply with their standards? How many of your fellow coworkers have you woken up already? No, they haven't really threatened to pull my badge. I've got 18 years on. I think I'm the only vocal voice there at the agency actually espousing the principles of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness and protection of property. So I think they just kind of ignore me and hope that I retire and go in peace. I can only think of one officer that actually told me now he listens to Alex Jones because I kind of put him on to it. And I know some people out there cringing when I mention AJ, but AJ, I think he produces, he creates a lot of debate. If you can create conversation about something, I think it's a good thing. So I don't totally dismiss Alex Jones. Next up, Ren Tyree. Why did you join such a band of thugs? I didn't obviously think of the institution of law enforcement or even the military as a band of thugs, 18 years ago. Even now, I think it's not so much thugs. I think it's just there's a culture of ignorance within law enforcement that it is perpetuated. There's not much training or initiative on educating the officers on the Constitution. And I think that is a primary problem we have within law enforcement agencies. Carlos Miller asks, do you have any cop friends? It's just funny. Yeah, I would say I do have some cop friends. There are a couple of guys I would actually go out with and have a drink with, and there are quite a few that I would actually pass on. Just, I acknowledge there are some dick cops out there, and I don't want to be around them. Riscala Stefan, do I walk to school or do I bring my lunch? Well, I haven't been in school for a long time, and back when I was in school, I did walk. And I didn't bring my lunch. I got the government lunch card. It's a strange question. Alyssa Wagner asked, have you been in a position where you have been able to save a citizen from overzealous fellow officers? I must acknowledge it within my agency only. I wouldn't say I've seen any physical overzealous officers toward some citizens. But I have seen overzealous in a sense of wanting to write a ticket to an elderly person or someone that's never had a ticket before. It's just, I've been able to intervene and step to the officer and ask him, hey, is it really necessary to write this person a $200 ticket, a $300 ticket? Give them a break. Life is hard. We're all being taxed into poverty. So to answer your question, Alyssa, yes, I would say I have, but not physically. Thank God I haven't seen any officers physically abuse anyone in my presence. James McDonough. What percentage of South Florida officers do you think are corrupt? Understanding that depends on where you draw your lines on what is and what is not corruption. Yeah, well, that is a tough one. Corruption, in a sense, I haven't seen, again, in my presence, I haven't seen any outright officers stealing property. I haven't seen any outright officers just battering and hitting someone for no reason at all. I haven't seen any outright thefts, anything like that. So in terms of corruption, I would have to imagine, just like all parts of society, I think there's a small percentage, like 1% society, even in law enforcement, that are actually corrupt, that are actually out there stealing, victimizing people physically, sexually, and all of that. So I would have to say a small percentage of officers are actually corrupt. Did I answer your question? That depends on where you draw the line. Yes, I think we have a not a problem with corruption within law enforcement. We have a problem of ignorance and not just loving our fellow man. Why don't we love our fellow man? Like, you know, I see in other cases where law enforcement actually take the time and want to help them. They don't want to kill or put their brothers, sisters, and family members in jail. What's happening in America where we're just so debauched in our mannerisms? All right. Thomas Thompson asks, explain, why don't cops cross the thin blue line, and what exactly is the thin blue line? Why don't cops cross the thin blue line? Well, the thin blue line in its creation was meant to represent this thin blue line between, I guess, chaos and in a civil society. The thin blue line where police, they're walking that line to protect society. And I think what you're asking is, why don't cops, expose other bad cops? And it's this culture in law enforcement where you don't want to be that outsider, the one that's not a team player. And I think that's why you'll see a lot of cops, instead of exposing a bad cop, they'll put their tail between their legs and try to confirm what the one officer may have said or done, and in order so he doesn't create this image that he's not a team player. So I think that's the big issue within law enforcement. You don't want to seem like an outsider, that you're not on the same team of catching the bad guy, Brian BKD DeLong asks, what did you want to do as a little kid, and what made you decide to be a Leo? I think I originally grew up watching a lot of Animal Planet. I wanted to be, I think I used to recall saying I wanted to be a zoologist and study animal behavior. And I think once I got into the military, I started, hanging around and playing with guns and, blowing things up. And that kind of changes your mindset. It diverted me off of the animal culture. And I think I wanted to, once I got out of the military, I wanted to continue protecting and serving and wearing a uniform and serving the community. And hence I joined the law enforcement community. Joshua Whitworth asks, do you have a YouTube channel, brother? Yes. And that is not such a strange question, because I believe Facebook has algorithms blocking certain channels and certain posts. So I do have a YouTube channel. It is the Penitent Cop. I am proud to admit now, when I type into the search window, it pops up within the first 10 of a drop down box. So when I start typing into the Penitent Cop, it pops up right within the first 10 comments. So yes, I do have a YouTube channel. Get on it. So subscribe, comment. I'm all for the constructive criticism. So whatever you want to say, I know I'm rocking this new haircut with the gray. So you want to comment on that? So be it. I don't care. Terrence Daniel asks, what do you think of our police department being used as mercs for oil companies here at Standing Rock? I think it's BS. Again, it goes back to a lot of my Facebook posts where I'll hashtag for the love of paycheck and pension. Police officers are, on the books, it looks good to say we're out there protecting and serving. Yes, but who are we protecting and serving? The average citizen or the corporation? And I think we're more useful protecting the corporations. That's how the system wants us to perform our duties. Yes, officers out there blocking. Again, from what I understand of the Standing Rock situation, a lot of that land was sovereign Indian land, First Nation land. and that corporations were blatantly violating that sovereignty. And as we've seen, the United States does not represent or does not respect sovereignty of other nations. So why would they respect the sovereignty of anyone here in America? Sarah Renee asks, do your coworkers and or boss give you shit for not being an ass? I guess by what you mean as being an ass is, just following orders, going out there and writing tickets and doing as I'm told. Do they give me shit? No, not so much. They do make jokes about me and that everyone has rights and constitutional rights and blah blah blah. But I think that's a positive, because if I'm getting them to acknowledge or even mention the word Constitution, I think it's somewhere in their cerebral cortex that they're thinking about it. So I think it's a bittersweet, but no, they don't give me too much crap about it. I am who I am, Lee Hawkins asks, are there at least a few of your fellow cops following your lead? I think I'm probably the most vocal at my agency. By my lead, do you mean is actively attempting to educate themselves on the constitutional principles of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness? I haven't seen it. So if they're out there, they're just they're hiding behind the scenes, and they don't want to be exposed as a constitutionalist, despite swearing an oath to the Constitution at the beginning of their hiring. Constitutionalists. Next up, John Mazurowski. Hopefully I pronounced that correct. Do you wear a cape at night, being your patriot superhero and all? I couldn't find my cape for this filming, but no, I try to leave the cape at home. I don't like, capes get you killed, man. If you're out there trying to do some superhero shit and your cape gets snagged on a fence or in a door, you can get hurt. They can mess up your actions. Joshua Whitworth back. He said, "What's your profile pic?" My profile pic is a inverted flag. I get a lot of crap from individuals when I fly my inverted flag on my truck. Obviously, for me, it is not a sign of disrespect to fly my flag inverted, upside down. If you look up United States code on the inverted flag, it would tell you that you can invert your flag in cases of dire distress. I just read an article just recently where people were being cited, given tickets for having their cars idle while they warm them up in cold temperatures. Yes, if that's not a clear example of your life, your property being in jeopardy, where the state can cite you because you want to warm up your own personal vehicle because you don't want chilly cheeks. Where I just posted a video of a former military gentleman. He's being cited and possibly will be arrested if he decides to live off-grid on his own property. This is a serious problem we have in America, and yes, I'll invert my flag until I see this tide changing toward a more liberty-oriented state here in America. But until then, it'll stay inverted. Crystal Gross asks, do you know where today's policing organization came from? How about your coworkers? Do they seem to know who or what the original policing looked like? Plus, how often do you do these question and answers? No, I don't think many of my coworkers understand, or many individuals in the law enforcement community understand where policing came from and how it originated. I think it may have started out originally as a good thing, but just like many things here in America, it has been weaponized against we the people. And it is no longer what it was, the original intent was, to protect and serve. No. And to answer your second question, this is my first question and answer, and hopefully I'll get better at it. Again, I'm working on the camera system, working on the lapel mic. So, no, I'll hopefully do this again, so keep the questions coming, Crystal. Rustin Hover? Sorry about that. Rustin Hover asked, Thoughts on Officer Dominic Izzo? Dominic Izzo. I stumbled upon Dominic Izzo on one of his Facebook posts, and I originally thought that he was a bit of a status, because I think a couple of his posts were basically comply or die, or just do as you're told and take it to court and you don't have a right to resist. And that bothered me, because I hate to hear this word, just obey. So I originally thought he was a bit of a status, and I kind of didn't follow his posts much. But recently, I believe he's come around. I think I've heard him say something about this whole drug war, where he understands that it is not a just war. It is a flawed war, where it's a war on the people and not drugs. The drugs have been around for decades now, and we have not made a dent. We want to change the situation with the drug war. We need to educate the people. We need to get them off the prescription pills, which kill more people than marijuana or alcohol combined. But we don't want to touch that, because Big Pharma doesn't like that. Joshua Whitworth again. Why do you think everyone in the establishment media and politics are against Donald Trump? Do you think he is a puppet? If so, is there a hatred of him? If so, is there a hatred of him a ruse? How would you feel about him if the media political establishment was in love with Trump? I am not a Trumpster. I don't think Trump is the Messiah that a lot of Trumpsters believe. I think he is another example of how they're dumbing down society. Come on, people. Trump, are you serious? Is he the true representative of the 50 states? Is he the best that we can do? I honestly believe in the next few years we may have a Kanye West as president. I mean, we got Trump. I thought H.W. or W. Bush was the worst we could do. We have Trump. Okay. So no, I think Trump is another element of the controlled New World Order. They're making a mockery of our Republican constitutional government, and it's a joke, and it's embarrassing, I think, to the world. Should be. Christopher Matthews asks, how is the awakening of your fellow coworkers going for you? Very slow. Very slow. Again, I look at it like feeding a baby. You can't give it too big of a spoonful. You have to give them in small bites, and that's what I do. I carry my book around with me, and hopefully someone will be curious enough to ask, hey, what are you reading? Can I see the book? And maybe light a spark in them. But again, look back at some of my two personalities video. I'm dealing with two personalities in law enforcement. One where they're being told, where you're a young officer and you've been told, or you've been trained, and you've been engineered to believe law enforcement in a certain way. So you don't want to hear that the penitent cop is trying to tell you that you're doing it wrong. And the other personality is where you've been doing it for so many years, it's almost impossible, or you will not change. So it's a uphill battle all the way. Ariel Kelly, is there some other way than shooting people's dogs? I hear about this often, and there have been so many times when they don't enter the right address. The dogs are trying to protect their owners, but surely there's got to be another way, and there is. One would be manning up. Stop being such little girls when it comes to dogs. In my 18 years, I can only think of one time where an officer has been attacked by a couple dogs. And even then, he didn't get hurt seriously. I think he pulled his taser out. And again, that's one option. Most agencies now have tasers you can use and deploy to prevent a dog attack. So again, yes, I think the first step is officers manning up and stop being such little babies when it comes to a dog running up to them. Dom Brinzi, as a lawful peace officer, what do you receive or have observed is America's most dangerous enemy, and why? Great question, and that's something I harp on all the time. And I think the number one enemy here in America, not just in law enforcement, is ignorance. Ignorance to history, ignorance to just spirituality, morality, ignorance, and our education is flawed. We're not getting proper education on life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Ignorance on family, the importance of having a strong family unit. I think, and animals are aware of this. You need to have a two-partner system, and a strong alpha male and a strong alpha female, and together they create a system or a offspring that's able to survive future generations, and that offspring does the same thing, and so forth and so on. So the number one enemy in America is ignorance, and this is not by accident, ladies and gentlemen. They are well aware that ignorance will allow people to do things that they wouldn't normally do. Harvey Ginsburg asks, would society be able to exist, carry on without cops/law enforcement? Another great question. And I believe, yes, society will exist and could carry on without police. We didn't always have police officers. Again, the law enforcement as an institution didn't come about until about the 1830s. So how do we survive prior to that? Was there complete anarchy? Was there complete lawlessness? No. The system realizes that they needed a group of men and women that they could deploy when the citizens become upset about the corrupt government. And they created law enforcement, and we started to arm us, militarize us with MRAPs, full auto weapons and body armor and armored vehicles. And I think it would take society a few generations to recognize that, hey, law enforcement is not coming to your aid. And I think some people right now, some communities are recognizing that and creating their own kind of like little law enforcements or community protection teams. If you knew the police weren't coming to aid you, then you might have to get with your neighbors, and come together to protect your home and your family. So do I think society would exist without police? Yes, and there are quite a few right now around the world existing without police intervention. Carolyn Margaret. Why is OIDV, I'm assuming that is Officer Involved Domestic Violence, I didn't get back with you, but I'm assuming that's Officer Involved Domestic Violence, so rampant, and why do police departments at every level of law enforcement not follow the policy and procedures laid out by the DOJ? Officer Involved Domestic Violence, I believe, is a problem within law enforcement, not only because law enforcement, again, we are sections of the same community, the same dumbed down community, the broken families, many officers are on prescription pills and things like that. We go through background checks, psych evals, and we try to weed out those individuals that might have issues with violence. And clearly, many slip through the cracks, as we have seen in many of the videos. But most agencies, if they're accredited, if they follow some kind of standards, I would imagine they would investigate any allegations of domestic violence. And again, what happens when an agency investigates themselves? So I guess if there's a allegation of the officer involved in domestic violence, it should be reported to the authorities, and hopefully it's investigated. And so I'm sorry, Margaret, I don't know about that. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That's my first question and answer. If you have any other questions, if you can think of anything else, let me know. I'll do another video, and I'll try to answer them from the perspective of the Penitent Cop. I am the Penitent Cop, coming to you live from South Florida. Like, comment, and subscribe. I'll take any comments. Just let me know so I can better my videos. And thank you, and I'll see you again.
That's the sound of the police. That's the sound of the beast. That's the sound of the police. That's the sound.